big news coming out of the association over the last 20 minutes or so, for those who have not been with us. Shams Charania and others reporting that the Washington Wizards are indeed trading Bradley Beal to the Phoenix Suns. The package, Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, handful of second-round picks, multiple pick swaps, according to Shams. Now, you and I were discussing this. Overall, the general thought, too, before this happened, I think a lot of people were going to be surprised by what a player like Bradley Beal commanded. But the value of Bradley Beal had sunk over the last 2-3 seasons because of his play, because of his lack of availability, because of the contract that he has. So this might seem like a pretty low price for Bradley Beal, but that's just the reality of where he was. And as we were discussing, you don't really love it because on the surface, you're talking about Chris Paul, who the indications are that he's probably going to get bought out here by the Washington Wizards, so he's going to hit the free agent market and cannot re-sign with the Phoenix Suns, by the way. I know that was a thought at one point. The fact that you get whatever a handful of second-round picks is, whatever that means, the pick swaps are probably going to be the most valuable part of this. We don't know what they are or when they are. I don't even know if they're going to be first-round pick swaps. But if they're first-round pick swaps and if they're like 4 years down the road, maybe you can talk yourself into those being somewhat valuable for Washington. But overall, not great in terms of a package for Bradley Beal. And, as you mentioned,
I don't love this from Phoenix perspective either.
Yep.
I mean, look, this is it possible for a top 25 player in the league to get traded and both teams lose? And that's with Phoenix giving up nothing? I mean, That's the bizarre thing with this. Like, again, you're dealing with a team where there are 5 human beings on the roster right now, and one of them is DeAndre Ayton.
Depth doesn't matter.
So, I mean, you're in a scenario now where by the way, they're already over the tax.
Yep.
They have 5 guys on the roster. They're over the tax already. So they're not going to be able to do much this offseason. They're going to have a lot of veteran minimum guys. We also have, as you mentioned earlier in the show, the CBA is going to be brand new in 24-25. So who knows what that looks like in comparison to what you have right now. It's not like Phoenix has draft picks that they can take people with in this upcoming draft on Thursday. It is a really bad roster construction scenario for the Suns where they better hope that their 3 guys all stay healthy. And it is all 3 guys, John, as you know, have injury history. So it is a scenario here where this is, man, a lot of things got to go right for Phoenix to realistically be able to push a Denver Nuggets in the Western Conference.
Yep.
And everyone's got to be healthy at the right time. And then the depth pieces they added got to be good, which I don't think is possible with the way their cap is.
I think that's going to be the case. And you look, so there's a couple of things. You mentioned Ayton. There's speculation. This is Ryan Wolstadt, a good NBA writer. You can follow on Twitter if you'd like. Wolstadt Sun, works for the Toronto Sun, post-media NBA. Anyway, had thrown out there that, hey, look, remember, the Indiana Pacers did sign DeAndre Ayton to an offer sheet. Or they gave him one. And Phoenix matched and took him back because he was a restricted free agent. Do you then engage Indiana one more time and say, hey, DeAndre Ayton, here you go. What would you like for him? Try to get some depth for your bench from the Indiana Pacers. But overall, look, I agree with your whole point here. Just look at what happened in the series with the Denver Nuggets. You needed historic performances just to steal 2 games from the Denver Nuggets. Your bench was an absolute mess. And at this point right now, given where you're at from a salary cap standpoint, Jeff, I mean, you're going to be scraping the bottom of the barrel to fill out the rest of this roster. And your starting point guard could be Campaign. That's the way we're looking at it right now.
Well, the other problem, too, is like the Ayton contract is genuinely awful at this point. Mm-hmm. We know this, and they shouldn't.
2 on one roster.
They should not have matched that. They should have just let him go. And you're now in a scenario here where, John, usually when you have a bad contract and you're trying to trade a bad contract like Ayton's contract is, you can attach assets to that. There are no assets. Mm-hmm. So it's just DeAndre Ayton. And, I mean, you could be getting some really awful stuff back for Ayton if you trade him. You're probably just better off sucking it up and keeping him there. But, man, John, doesn't this feel like just the new owner coming in and saying, I want to win now, and thinking that this is the way to do it, even though it's probably not the way to do it?
And that's the thing. Yes, it screams new owner, right? The new owner comes in, gets rid of Monty Williams. New owner comes in, makes them acquire Kevin Durant. New owner comes in, makes them get the big splashy name. I think this is going to be not very good, we'll say.
For what it's worth, the Durant trade, I still have absolutely no issue with them doing it. None. Even though I think Mikal Bridges is probably going to turn into an all-star caliber player, I have no problem with them doing that. The Monty Williams thing, I understand it. Coaches are pretty interchangeable at this point in the NBA. They had back-to-back high-profile home failings in closeout scenarios the last 2 years. I don't hate that. This, again, it is so strange to be saying it in a trade where the Suns legitimately gave up a bag of baseballs for a top 25 guy. But they are in such cap hell now that they have no ability to construct a roster. And once one of these three guys gets hurt, and it will happen during this year, how are you going to sustain any sort of success when one of Beal, Durant, or Booker goes out, unless if the other two dudes are still there, are playing 38 minutes a game, and you can't do that in an NBA regular season.
Yep, absolutely. And this is, let's see, because I think they did already ink Devin Booker to his extension. So they've got all three of these contracts, Durant, Booker, and Beal, for a while now, the Phoenix Suns do. And it's just like, what you're going to do from a depth perspective is absolutely fascinating. This team, by the way, now that the trade has been made official, the adjustment in the odds, they are the third choice over at DraftKings and other spots at about 6-1.
No, thank you.
To win the NBA championship. I agree with that sentiment 100%. The market might really love this team, but you really have to look at this over the course of, I can't wait to see what win totals are going to look like for this team. If we're talking about like high 50s, or high 50s, you'd be like, mid to high 50s,
mid to high 50,
51 to 54.
54 and a half is definitely
under.
In play.
But I hate it. I genuinely, in any given game, are we going to see matchups where they're going to go to like a Charlotte and Beal and Booker and Durant are going to combine for like 90-plus points and in a freaking Wednesday in November? Sure. But I just think at the end of the day, when you're looking at this, and by the way, offensive upside through the roof. I'm not one of those believes that's like, it's one basketball. No, offensively, they'll make it work. I think there's plenty of.
They'll be fine.
They'll be fine. Who's playing defense for you, and where your bench minutes coming from are just a massive question mark.
The second one is the bigger issue.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.